Hello everyone and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. If you've followed my channel for some time, you may know that I'm no stranger to using balloons in my casting projects. In my first attempt, I used epoxy resin inside balloons to cast vases, bowls and even a lampshade, and that video to date is my most viewed video so far. After the epoxy one, I decided to try it out with UV resin on the outside surface of an inflated balloon, and I think those dishes that I made that way were my favourite creations so far. After that, I tried it with Aqua Cast casting compound, coating the inside of the balloons to create beautiful bud vases, but it was very tricky and quite unreliable. But that didn't put me off because I ended up making 3 of them. I just loved the feel of them and the way they looked. Absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, fast forward to today. Once again, I'll be using Aqua Cast inside a balloon, but in a very different way. This time, it's not my idea. I saw it done slightly differently on Instagram, and I decided I needed to have a go myself. So if you would like to see me cast Aqua Cast water-based eco resin inside a balloon to create curvaceous tea light holders, you're in the right place. And stay tuned until the end for a very messy outtake. The piece you're about to watch me make is actually my 3rd attempt. My first 2 attempts were very useful because I learnt so much which I can now pass on to you. And I will tell you those things along the way. So let's just get on with this one first. Today I'm going to be using the original Aqua Cast water-based eco resin from Elichem resins. They have a whole range now, but the original one is so good and so versatile, so that's the one I'm going to be using. I've measured out 190 grams of water, and I also need to measure out 530 grams of powder. Once it was measured, I gave it a thorough mixing until it was smooth and lump-free. Well, I say lump-free, it does actually get harder to make it lump-free the more mixture that you have in your pot. Normally, after mixing, if I was putting this into a mould, I would strain it through a sieve first before doing that, but because of the nature of what I'm making today, I'm actually not too concerned about getting a few little lumps in there because you will never know. I've kept my footage in real time so that you got to see how quickly that lumpiness does actually go. It started off really stodgy, didn't it? And already it's looking very good indeed. So yeah, it's very easy to mix up Aqua Cast. So with my previous ones where I'd practiced, I got some really good effects by using several different colours. But this one I got a little bit carried away and you couldn't really see all the different colours in it. But anyway, what I'm using is Autumn Bark, Autumn Ember, Duck Egg Blue and Zen Green, all from Homeware Design Co. on Etsy. And I've put quite a lot in actually, and I'm just giving each one a little mix, not a thorough mix. I didn't want it completely mixed, and that way you get more of a interesting effect on your finished piece. And then it was time to pour it carefully into my bottle. You need a steady hand for this, or a funnel, but yeah, steady hand works fine. This bottle was hand wash. It's a 500 millilitre bottle. You need to have a bottle that you can squeeze, so maybe washing up liquid would be a good option if you have an empty bottle. And so yeah, this bottle is the most important thing, other than the balloon, I suppose, because without the bottle you can't get it into the balloon. So yeah, once everything was all poured in, I could put the balloon on the top. So first of all, you need to blow your balloon up a little bit. Not too much, it doesn't have to be blown up too much at all. And then you can give it a twist so the air doesn't escape, and then stretch it over the neck of the bottle. And because of the ridges on the top of the bottle, which are for the screw top, it really holds the balloon in position nicely. But I did hold on to it just in case. So once it's upside down, all you've got to do is wait till all the Aqua Cast has poured into the balloon. Obviously, there will be some wasted inside the bottle. You can't get it all out because you can't get in there to scrape it. But I held it upside down for as long as I thought was reasonable. Obviously, you don't want to leave it too long. You don't want it to start curing at this stage. There's still a lot to do. So this is the first one that I made after the incident where everything went wrong, which you will see at the end. There was no balloon bursting, but it was the next worst thing that could happen after that. And I was being very cautious at this particular point. So I've got some scissor clamps there, and just to secure it while I took it off the bottle. It really isn't necessary, but I was kind of in that zone of being very, very cautious. You will understand when you see what happened right at the end. And you did just see me cleaning away as much of the excess from the top as I could, because what I'm doing now is letting the air out. And if the top has got loads in there, you're going to get splattered with it as the air escapes. So do try to clear up any excess. And there you can see, once the excess air was all out, I twisted it. Here I'm clamping it, but I ended up taking those off. It didn't work. I thought I could leave that on while I knotted it, because it's this bit where it went wrong last time. But honestly, don't try the clamps for that. It doesn't work. Just make sure that the balloon is nice and dry and not slippery when you go to tie the knot. So there we go. No air in there, just all my Aqua Cast. On to the next step. So this is one of the things that I learned through practicing, and it is to use a container. And this is my husband's lunchbox. I will put the dimensions on the screen for you. And this worked perfectly. I cut a piece of cardboard to fit the bottom of the container and made a hole in the middle for my tealight candle. The tealight candle is going to give the donut shape and obviously make a shape big enough for a tealight candle, but it also keeps everything symmetrical and in place. Another thing I learned through practicing is to do it upside down. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting the tealight at the bottom and putting the balloon onto it so that the whole thing is upside down, because any air bubbles in that balloon will rise to the top and cause like a rough texture in the finished piece, and you want that to be at the bottom where no one will see it. That's why I'm doing it upside down. There's also a chance you could get a pocket of air and a hole from not a hole, like a divot, I suppose, from where your knot is on your balloon, and that all needs to be at the bottom, which will be at the top, if you get what I mean. The knotted neck of the balloon actually comes in really handy. As you can see here, I made another disc of cardboard with a small hole in the centre, and this just fits nicely in the top of the container. And I threaded the knot through the hole, and that keeps it all central and stops it from rolling over, which can be a problem. In the video I quickly saw on my Instagram feed, and I'm so sorry, I don't know who it was making the video, but anyway, they used a clamp. They didn't use a container like this. They clamped down the tealight holder onto the top of the balloon and did it that way, but I just prefer this way. So I left it secure for about an hour, and then it was time to take the balloon off, and the balloon comes off very, very easily. This moment is quite exciting. Even though it was only my third one, I discovered that it was exciting seeing what had happened with the pigments, you know, when it all got just poured in there. Sometimes you get a really nice effect. Like I did kind of mention before, this one I wasn't quite so impressed with, but it was still a beautiful colour. And yeah, I actually do like the finished piece, especially once I waxed it. The colours really came out nicely. I'm really sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the background. Okay, the dog is removed from the window. No more barking. My goodness, she makes a noise. Anyway, there we go. I love the kind of teal colour that I got. It's a lovely deep colour. Darker at the top there, you can see, and lighter at the bottom. Bit patchy with the brown. It kind of just ended up there in a splodge. But still, I really love it. And do you know what I love most of all about these? It's the feel of them. You just want to run your hands over them. They feel very cold, just like stone, and heavy, obviously. And yeah, you just want to stroke them. They feel absolutely wonderful. So let's get some wax on and show you how it looks with the wax. Obviously, this isn't done straight away. You need to let it dry out. It's best to leave it for about a day before you seal it, or even more would be even better, so that there's no moisture trapped in there. I tend to leave the bottom unsealed till last minute, and then if there's any moisture left in there, it can get out through the bottom. The wax that I'm using is Clark's wax for stone and concrete. I got that from Amazon. If I can remember, I will leave a link. And yeah, the reason I use wax is because it intensifies the colour. It does give it a lovely sheen as well. I could use the Hydroflow sealer from Elichem resins. That does work well, but it tends to keep the colour its true colour, if you get what I mean. It darkens at first, but once it dries out, it goes back to, you know, the original shade, which is really helpful if that's what you want. But sometimes I like to really intensify the colour by adding the wax, and so that's why I chose the wax. So I really loved how that one turned out, and looking at the shape of it is what made me want to make the donuts, which are coming up very soon. But let me show you this one. This one is the one, this is what was left after my accident that you'll see at the end. So I lost quite a lot of the Aqua Cast, but I kept on going, and I decided to have a go at doing one where the tealight wasn't placed centrally, just to make it look a little bit different. They don't all have to be the same shape. You can make it look quite organic, just like a group of stones. And yeah, so that's why I had one off centre, and those colours really did come out beautifully. And yeah, that's what it looks like with less of the Aqua Cast. Yeah, I bet you're dying to see what happened, aren't you? What a mess. Anyway, let's get on to my very first one. So here it is. This one I did the other way up. So yeah, as you can see, the best colour is at the bottom and you can't see it, and the pale bit is at the top, along with all the air bubbles and a big pocket of air, which I did fill in because I was trying to see if I could save this. And here you can see I'm waxing it as well, just to see if I can make it look okay. But yeah, it was a shame about the top, and it was at that point I decided, you know, when I first saw this, that I really needed to do them the other way up. I highly recommend having your balloon upside down with your tealight at the bottom, and then you won't get that messy bit at the top. And before we go on to making the donut, let's just give you a look at these on the turntable, because it's nice to give them a good show off, isn't it? Especially when so much time and effort goes into them. It's nice to just have a look at them properly on the turntable. This one, there's not that much to see, is there, really? You can hardly even tell it's turning round. But I still love it. I really do love it. There's something about the depth of the colour and those really subtle patterns in there that make it so special. And yeah, that will be keeping in my house. I don't think I'll be giving that one away. And here's the other one, which actually, the more I look at it, the more I like it. And yeah, it's very strokeable. Like I said before, you can't stop just holding them and stroking them. They're just so soft. There's something about the balloon as well that makes it a very, very soft surface, very smooth. So yeah, the balloon does work so well with the Aqua Cast. Are you ready to see me make a proper donut? Yeah, I am too. Let's get on with it. So I'm not going to go into as much detail on this one because you've seen it all before. Yeah, I've done all the measuring and the mixing and I've chosen my colour. My colour is Autumn Harvest. I thought that one would work really well to give me a donut colour. And this time I am thoroughly mixing it in. After thoroughly mixing it, I added it to the bottle in just the same way as before. As you can see, there are some lumps in there, but don't worry about it, it really doesn't matter. I tried to give you a better view once again, and this is what happened. So yeah, sorry. That just didn't work out. Never mind, you know how it goes. Let's get on to the next step. So this time when I knotted the balloon, I ended up with a little baby balloon at the top. Crazy, eh? I never could tie knots in balloons. Ever. I've never been able to do it. It always goes wrong. So anyway, I needed to adapt my cardboard so that the little baby balloon could fit through the hole and I could secure it in the same way as before. But I managed it in the end. An hour later, I returned to it and demolded it, and I was really hoping that the colour that I'd chosen would work well as a donut colour. Let's see if it did. And there we go. I'm really happy with that, and it's so smooth, isn't it? Yeah, I love that. There's something about, I keep saying it, there's something about moulding Aqua Cast in balloons that gives you such a beautiful feel to the Aqua Cast that you just can't get with silicone moulds. I don't know why, it's just so nice. Anyway, I'm waffling. Let's get on with making this look more like a donut. Right, to make it look like a real donut, I needed some icing, or you might know it as frosting. I think it depends where in the world you live. What do you say? Do you say icing or do you say frosting? Anyway, I'm making pink icing and I'm using Aqua Cast again. I did think about using resin, but I plumped for Aqua Cast in the end. I really wanted to see if it would work. And so I'm making up the measurements. I didn't work out, I didn't do it properly. I just put some water in the jug and just kept on adding the Aqua Cast powder until I was happy with the thickness. I wanted it to be thicker than usual so that it wouldn't drip too much after I dipped the donut into it. I wanted it to be nice and thick and gloopy. After I'd finished mixing, I added some vivid pink pigment, also from Homeware Design Co on Etsy, and hoped that I hadn't added too much. Luckily, by the time I'd finished mixing, it was the baby pink that I wanted, and yeah, I was happy with that colour. So my silicone mixing pot really wasn't big enough to fit the donut into it without, getting the stuff on the side of my donut. I wanted to keep it clean on the sides. So I transferred it into this bigger dish just for the dipping process. And as you can see, it was very simple. All I did was placed it into the pink Aqua Cast and took it out and hoped for the best. Let's have a look to see if it worked. And there we go. I was very happy with that. Not bad at all. It needed a little bit of tidying up around the inside, but yeah, I was very happy with that. At this stage, I could have sprinkled on my sprinkles, or hundreds and thousands, as I like to call them, but I did have a practice with the my very first one that I'd made. that I wasn't really happy with. I practiced on that with the hundreds and thousands, and the dye from them just bled. And I was so glad I did that practice because I knew that that wasn't going to work. So all I did after dipping it was I allowed it to cure, and then I could go on to the next step. But at the moment I had lots of pink Aqua Cast to use up, so I poured it into the jug again and then poured it into my coaster mould. That is the only thing, if you're going to be doing the dipping method that I did, you need to have a plan for the excess Aqua Cast so you don't waste it. So I thought it might be nice to make a couple of coasters to go with the donut. Looking back on it, I wish I'd done some more tapping. I did get a lot of air bubbles trapped in there because it was so thick, but never mind, I still made some coasters which you'll see very soon. And now you can probably tell from the lighting and the shadow of my camera over my work surface that I'm working under artificial light. I wanted to wait until night time for this step because I'm using UV resin, and I'm actually using quite a lot of UV resin. And with the sunshine we've been having here recently, I couldn't risk doing this in the daylight because it could start to cure before I'd finished, spreading all the UV resin around. This is J. Dixon's high viscosity UV resin, which is nice and thick and it's not going to run about all over the place. And yeah, you get a lot of control with it. And I'm just using my gloved finger to spread it all around just to coat the Aqua Cast. Once it was fully coated, I sprinkled on my hundreds and thousands and cured it under my lamp. So that secured the hundreds and thousands nicely into place, and then I gave it a second coat of the UV resin just to make sure the hundreds and thousands were all sealed and properly secured. I did use a paintbrush for this. If you use a paintbrush, you do need to make sure you clean it with alcohol afterwards. Isopropanol will do the trick nicely, and when you've thoroughly cleaned it with alcohol, just clean it with soap and water like you normally would and your brush will be fine. It really does need a brush to be able to get in between all those sprinkles. So before I show you the finished donut tea light holder, let me quickly decorate the coasters. There were quite a lot of big bubbles trapped around the edge of these coasters because I didn't really spend enough time on them to get rid of them, which I normally would do, but yeah, also the mixture was really thick, which really didn't help. Anyway, I'll show you nonetheless. I soldiered on because I didn't want to give up. I sanded them a little bit around the edges, and after that they weren't quite as bad. So my plan for the coasters was to just have a portion around one side of what would look like icing with the hundreds and thousands on to complement the tea light holder. I couldn't decide whether I wanted white icing or pink, so I did one of both. I did end up preferring the pink, but you'll see what I did about that in a moment. I'm using acrylic marker pens just to paint on the icing area. When the paint was dry, I added UV resin just in the same way as before, just like I did with the donut. One layer of resin, put the sprinkles on, and then another layer of resin. And that's as simple as it was, really. The only problem was, like I said, I didn't like the white one, so I ended up colouring over it with pink and going over it with more hundreds and thousands, and I did manage to save it in the end. And once they were both done, just like with the donut, I finished them off with a final layer of UV resin to protect them. And this time, before curing them, I added some sparkle with fairy dust glass, sparkle glass from Laura's Art Corner, which is absolutely beautiful. I'm in love with it. And such tiny little sparkly pieces of glass just gave it an extra finishing touch, which you might not actually be able to see under the camera. But in real life you really see that sparkle. Okay, we're nearly at the finishing line with these. All that was left to do was to sand the bottoms of everything and to add some cork, and also there was some sealing to do. So yeah, here I'm just rubbing the donut onto the sandpaper just to smooth it out a little bit before sealing it. I sealed the donut with wax just to darken it a little bit, but for the coasters I did use Elichem's Hydroflow Sealer, and because the coasters I do recommend using several layers because any tea or coffee stains going onto them will still stain it if you don't do at least 2 or 3 layers. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that. And here is my adhesive cork sheet getting cut on my Cricut maker. If you don't have one of these, you could do it by hand, but this just makes it nice and precise. I use the cutting, what's it called? The rotary cutter for this on the denim setting. If you use the blade, I found you don't get a very clean cut. So if you use the rotary blade, that works a lot better. Once they were all cut, I was able to just peel off the backing paper and attach the cork to all my separate pieces. And it really is the perfect finishing touch. It just makes it so neat and professional when you turn it over and see that lovely cork base. And you know what? I absolutely love my donut tea light holder. I think it's just brilliant, and I actually really like the coasters that go with it, even though they were just an afterthought in an attempt to use up my pink Aqua Cast. So I promised you we would finish off with the outtake, so are you ready to cringe? I hope so. Here we go. And let's just take a moment to appreciate the fact that I didn't even swear. Yeah, did you notice that? And I just carried on. I wasn't going to waste any more of that Aqua Cast. I really think we need it again in slow motion. Oh dear. Now do you see why I was being so careful before? It didn't stop me though, did it? And yeah, I will still keep doing these because I think they're really lots of fun, even if there is a bit of cleaning up. Well, I do believe this is the longest video I've done in a while, and if you're still with me, thank you for staying tuned right up till the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much. And subscribe as well if you would like to. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.